Police are still investigating the pandemonium at JFK just a couple weeks ago. It all started after someone mistakenly believed that they in fact had heard gunshots. It was all-out panic. Crowds running, trampling people in the process, others cowering behind pillars and under seats. Still, more people rushing even onto the tarmac, adding to the confusion. Well, one thing in common throughout this all was very little, if any, communication with the people, and even Port Authority police officers didn't seem to know what was happening. People in the terminal, well, what they decided to do was turn to social media in many cases to try and figure out what was happening, often with false information as a result. And for more on groupthink as well as crowd behavior, we're very pleased to be joined by Dr. William H. Warren from Brown University. Doctor, thank you very much for a few. I appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
You know, when you saw the whole thing unfold, and for many of us, we saw the imagery that came out, I'm not sure what would shock me more, just how little it took to create so much pandemonium, or how ill thought you would think a major airport would be prepared to deal with a situation that, in this case, it spanned hours. It went from one terminal to the other with hours in the interregnum. When you look back on it, what took you the most aback?
Well, actually, one thing I want to emphasize is that it probably was not panic. There's been a lot of use of the term panic in the media about this event, but panic is actually very rare. And it has to involve irrational behavior, and it has to involve aggressive behavior in which people are putting their own safety ahead of the people around them. And that's not what I saw in the video and photographs from JFK. People were behaving rationally. They were trying to go down hallways as quickly as they could. They were finding exits. They were hiding in places of safety. That wasn't panic. It was a kind of natural crowd behavior that I think we see all over the place.
We did, though, see, William, in certain cases, though, if I could, certain people showing bruises from being all but stampeded in certain cases, people running onto the tarmac in an active airport. Those don't scream rational behavior to me.
Well, it's a group that's trying to escape. It's more like a kind of flight behavior, right? It's what we call collective behavior, when people start interacting with each other and create a crowd or a group that behaves coherently together. And so if there are people in front of this group, we have eyes in the front of our heads, not the back of our heads, so we're responding to the people in front of us. If someone is racing out an exit, that's a rational thing to do, and other people will try to follow them out that exit. The problem is that when this gets amped up, so there's kind of a natural tendency to behave as others around you are behaving, but when this gets amped up, then people start running and people fall. That's when you get the trampling and things like jamming at exits where people get crushed. But it's a consequence of a kind of natural tendency to form collective behavior.
And I know you've spoken about certain experiments that have taken place that just confirm here that idea of group behavior. If a group of people end up looking up at a building, without fail, people walking down the street will mimic the same behavior. You talked before on campuses, people walking at certain speeds, surrounding groups will also mimic some of those speeds. But I then bring it back to the news narrative. Immediately thereafter, I saw Senator Schumer saying we have to have a coherent plan. I've heard even in some of the investigations, people saying we need more of a coherent plan. I get it, and we certainly do, but how is that supposed to work in a day and age where people go to social media and they're even getting more false narratives poured on top of already anxiety when you're already at a place like an airport? Can you have a policy that can kind of calm and police folks down?
Mm-hmm. So I think it is the anxiety, and in this particular case, a lot of uncertainty about what caused other people to run, right? Some people heard a bang, they started running, other people saw them running, and that contributed to this sort of stampede. You can think about this, again, I study humans, but in animals you see a similar sort of thing. So think about a school of fish that is foraging around a reef, behaving individually, and when a predator approaches, suddenly those fish form up into a coherent school. And I think we see the same sort of thing in the airport, that when there's a perceived threat, when there's uncertainty about what's going on, people formed up into a coherent crowd and behaved in this stampede-like way. So the danger is that these sort of kind of natural behavior, when it it can lead to very dangerous crowd dynamics in a situation like this.
William, in terms of if you were being brought in to say, well, how do we mitigate this if a similar situation were to happen in an airport or obviously in a large gathering, I would assume one of the things is people in authority need to communicate with the masses. One of the things that struck me was you had both TSA agents and people working for the airlines at different counters, some even taking off their shirts repeatedly saying it's not worth it. Can we expect, other than law enforcement, other officials to take leadership roles when there's anxiety at play, or does everybody do the flight or fight dynamic here as soon as a potential dangerous situation presents itself?
So I think the problem here is clearly communication, right? What led to this situation was a lot of uncertainty about what happened, why other people are running. So I think about this, we think about this in terms of the coupling between people in a group. And if that coupling is very weak, if somebody starts running because their flight is late, other people don't start running. But if you see a whole group of people running, then your tendency is to join them. So this is this tendency to do what others around you are doing, this sort of coupling strength. And the problem is that these couplings are now through social media as well as just through the immediate people that you see. And so if people were getting the social media reports that people in other gates or other terminals, something bad was happening, that spreads this sort of contagion. So the problem really is communication. And in this instance, uncertainty about what the cause of people running was really at the root of it. So maybe there were reports that people were listening to the Olympics on TV and that there were loud noises on the TV, and that led to people to start running. But so if there's, what authorities somehow need to do is to provide the communication that decouples people from each other, right? That they say, this is not a panic situation, reduce your anxiety, there's no need to run. And if that message can get out, then you can weaken the coupling strength between people and cut into this behavior.
William Warren, I certainly appreciate a few minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.